Kylie. I wanted to leave you some feedback on your thesis statement and outline for Essay 1. As a whole, I think that you have a good working idea, but there's some things here and there that I want to talk to you about to try to help you strengthen your argument here. So first off, I think you capture the overarching main idea in your opening sentence here of your summary. Make sure that you refer to this as a short story because that's a passage refers to like a section of a story, and this isn't a section, right? It's an entire story. So make sure that you're using the correct vocabulary. So just say short story. So you have a good opening sentence here, but I think you start evaluating before you bring in all of the plot details that are needed to understand the story. So one of the things that you want to do with summary is not assume that the reader has necessarily said the story. Read the story is what I meant to say. And so you need to go ahead and bring in some of the basic plot details about the setting, who the narrator is, and what specifically happens, right? So bringing in the ideas that the narrator is a prison guard, the story takes place in a prison, and what the prisoner does that day, right? He steps over the puddle, and that's when the narrator has his epiphany. Those are the ideas that need to get into your summary so the reader has an understanding of why you're coming to the conclusion that you have. So, I think that you're asking some fair questions about the story. I wouldn't yet call this a thesis statement. So I get that you're saying that the reader is basing his opinion on an emotional reaction without really concrete evidence, I guess, of his innocence, is what you're saying. So what I think you're wanting to argue here is that Orwell's argument is ineffective because he relies primarily on pathos rather than perhaps logos and ethos. So I want you to do some tweaking on your thesis statement because I can see that you have a idea simmering here, but it's not fully realized, and I think it's because of how it's stated. So go back to that claim because reason model that we've talked about in class, and that your textbook illustrates. And try to see if you can make this more concrete. So I think what you want to work with is the idea that Orwell's argument is ineffective, and you want to say why, right? And I think that you have some fair criticism, but the thesis isn't completely realized yet. So I think as far as your key ideas go, the middle one is the best one. The third one, let's talk about in just a moment. The first one, I don't think I follow your line of logic here. So you say that the first one is there's no evidence of why this man should live. If you are arguing why it is morally wrong to kill a living man, then there should be evidence to back up why. I don't follow your line of logic because morality is a reason why someone would be opposed to killing someone, meaning that morality is essentially a principle or a standard that society agrees upon in order to make decisions. So if I say that I am morally opposed to something, that's a reason. That's enough evidence to say that it's okay for me to believe that way, right? So I'm not sure that I agree that he doesn't provide the evidence. I think that he does. I think what you could argue, however, you could argue that morals are not universal. So I think that you could argue that just because one group has a set of morals doesn't mean that another group shares that morals. that same moral, right? So if you think about the criminal justice system in our society, for example, we say it is wrong to kill someone. It is immoral. It's a sin to kill someone. However, we also say that it is okay for the state to kill someone if that person has committed a crime that is so egregious that the state has essentially the moral right to kill that person, to execute that person. Does that make sense, right? So I think that you could make this work, but as it stands now, I'm not sure that the main idea works. Because if someone is saying that this is my moral leaning, that is evidence, and you can't argue against it, right? But what you could argue is that morality is not universal. You could argue that morality is relative, and that could be a way to argue that point. I think it's fair to say that Orwell relies on pathos and not enough logos, so I think that you can unpack that one. I am not entirely sure what you're saying here for your third key idea. So you say it will be from the narrator's aspect and will mainly be about why the man should live. Why does the narrator give us that could be, or what does the narrator give us that could be potential reasons to look into? I just can't follow what you're saying here. So I think that you need to fully flesh out what you mean here, because I can't follow you. I do think that, yeah, you should look at both sides of the position to make your point. So that's a good idea, but I can't tell what your point is here. So the strongest key idea you have at this moment is the fact that Orwell relies on pathos more than anything else. And I think that that's a fair criticism. I think figuring out what you're really saying here and rethinking this line of argument is going to be important. Because like I said before, I'm not sure that I agree with what you're saying here. I think that if somebody says that it's against my morality, that is a reason. And like I said before, we can't argue with it if that's the case. We don't have to agree with it, but we can't argue with it. And that's the difference. So I think it's getting there, right? But there's some revision needed in your summary. There's some revision in clarifying your thesis and also clarifying your key ideas. And I think if you get those fleshed out, it could make for a good critical analysis. All right. Let me know if you have any questions about this. Thanks.